On August 15, 2025, Bruce Willis moved into a care facility. His family's annual expenses to keep him safe came to $200,000. The man who used to yell over explosions and Die Hard is now mute. It's hardly the worst part, though. Emma shared something that she had been keeping for years. Bruce, he believed, was simply being aloof. She was unaware of the gradual death of his brain. Long before anyone realized it, the illness had begun taking him away. You will be heartbroken by what his family learned. On March 19, 1955, Bruce Willis was born in Idar-Oberstein, a tiny town in West Germany. His mother was a German from Kassel, and his father was an American soldier who had been stationed there during the war. Bruce's world was divided between two civilizations from the beginning. He was trapped between German customs and American discipline, living on a military base surrounded by the specters of a recent conflict. But everything changed when he was only 2 years old. The entire family relocated to New Jersey in 1957 after his father left the service. Bruce was no longer the German boy all of a sudden. In a harsh American neighborhood full of struggling families and factory workers, he was just another child. His mother held part-time jobs at banks while his father worked with metal. No, Bruce didn't feel like he belonged anyplace, and they didn't have anything. He began to have serious concerns about something as the 1960s approached. Bruce started experiencing a terrible stammer at the age of 6. His throat became locked with words. Say. Every time he tried to talk, nothing came out correctly. Children mocked him and cruelly called him Buck Buck. He attempted to defend himself by flailing his fists furiously, but the embarrassment of his inability to speak coherently followed him around. He occasionally needed many minutes to finish a phrase. His confidence was shattered. School had already turned into a battleground by the time he was 10 years old. The stutter was more than simply painful. It made him feel alone. The tipping moment might have been high school. To avoid being called upon, he just skipped lessons. To divert attention from his speech, he played practical jokes. However, at the age of 15, he took a gamble and joined the drama club one day in the early 1970s. And an incredible thing occurred. The stutter vanished as soon as he took the stage and began reading lines. It resembled magic. He was fearless and able to communicate clearly and fluently. People paid attention for the first time. Teachers were in disbelief. Bruce discovered that when he changed into someone else, he was able to speak freely, and that acting restored his voice. Everything changed with that finding. Even though some children continued to make fun of him, he was elected president of the student council by 1973. He was indifferent. Something that gave him a sense of life had been discovered. Additionally, 2 professors at Montclair State University provided him with speech treatment in 1975 while he was a theater student, which further aided him. However, Bruce had become weary of school by 1977. Determined to pursue a greater goal, he left school and relocated directly to New York City. He put in a lot of overtime as a bartender to make ends meet because he had no money and no contacts. He occasionally had to sleep in small apartments or crash on couches. He did, however, make people chuckle. To go to work, he skated. For tips, he played the harmonica. He made a stage out of the bar. Those were difficult and chaotic years. In his first year, he received more than 100 rejections. However, he gradually began to get parts in off-Broadway productions. In 1977, he played his first significant role in the drama Heaven and Earth. He persisted despite the lack of money and the frequent rejection. When conditions deteriorated, he occasionally had to sleep on benches. However, he began to draw attention. He landed little parts in movies and small commercial roles before landing a quick moment with Frank Sinatra in 1980. However, he got into a brawl one night while serving drinks while attempting to defend someone. His nose was severely broken. He required urgent surgery. He recovered despite the doctor's warning that the damage would affect his voice. He returned more resilient. He had an advantage because the scar persisted. Nobody realized at the time that he would go on to become one of the world's biggest action stars. However, he created something more resilient than notoriety in those little struggling clubs in New York. He forged friendships that will endure for many years. Behind the counter at Chelsea Central, he met John Goodman, with whom he staged impromptu, crazy performances that astonished small audiences. Even though they only made a few dollars a week and were broke, their love was genuine. They didn't use scripts. They immersed themselves into every moment, screaming and shouting. Bruce's timing improved as a result of these unpolished performances, and he gained the enthusiasm that would eventually light up movie theaters. Then everything changed in 1985. Bruce entered the audition for the upcoming television program Moonlighting. Approximately 3,000 actors, including trained entertainers and radio personalities, applied for the part. Bruce was turned down 11 times by ABC, but he returned one final time with earrings, a shaved head, and an unmistakable attitude. He made the producers giggle by improvising his lines. All of a sudden, they wanted the outsider who stutters. After the March 3, 1985 premiere of Moonlighting, Bruce Willis shot to fame. The performance was costly and disruptive. Filming took twice as long as other shows. Although the episodes were 120 pages long, Bruce's charisma, quickness, and unpredictable nature made them a hit. He and his co-star Sybil Shepherd frequently disagreed. Tensions were brewing on the set by 1986. Before scenes, they quarreled, yelled at one another, and occasionally wouldn't talk off camera. Bruce had to be hospitalized in 1988 after collapsing from exhaustion due to the extreme pressure. Fans were kept interested despite the delayed scripts and declining ratings. Bruce was charismatic in front of the camera, but he was burning out behind the scenes. Bruce surprised everyone by releasing a music album titled The Return of Bruno in January 1987, when all of this was going on. No one thought a TV personality would be at the top of the charts, but he did. With 500,000 copies sold, the record became a gold standard. In the UK, it even peaked at number 2. Fans were unconcerned, but critics rolled their eyes. Bruce transformed it into an amazing experience by singing alongside soul legends. Like him, it was odd, audacious, and enjoyable. However, the grind was wearing thin. Bruce was forced to the limit while filming Moonlighting episodes that cost more than $1 million each. Additional delays resulted from his co-star's pregnancy in 1987, and a significant writer's strike in 1988 almost ended the program permanently. Finally, the show terminated on May 14, 1989. Bruce had put his all into it. His name was already well known in Hollywood by that point. His TV pay had increased dramatically, leaping to $50,000 every episode. From the initial $1,500 gigs he had, Bruce Willis wasn't meant to be the main character at the time. Nobody anticipated that he would be cast in the lead part of a major action movie because he was primarily recognized as the endearing character from Moonlighting. However, in a bizarre turn of events in the late 1980s, a screenplay named Die Hard was circulating across Hollywood. Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger, among others, had already declined. Since the plot was essentially a sequel to a film in which he had featured decades previously, even Frank Sinatra was questioned. He also passed. Bruce Willis then unexpectedly received the offer. Everyone was taken aback not only by his selection, but also by the studio's willingness to give him $5 million. Superstars like Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford were the only ones who could afford that type of money. Industry insiders believed the studio had gone insane. The majority of the movie was filmed inside Los Angeles Fox Plaza when production got underway in late 1987. Nobody could have predicted that the film would become that popular by the time it was released on July 15, 1988. In addition to earning over $140 million globally. It elevated Bruce Willis to the status of an action hero. However, there was a cost. His left ear suffered permanent partial hearing loss after a loud detonation occurred too near him during one of the several explosive acts. In order to avoid interfering with production, he kept it quiet at the time. However, years later it was discovered that the injury never completely recovered, and that it contributed to his health problems until the 2000s. Still, everything was altered by the relatable, rough-edged spirit he brought to John McClane. He didn't appear to be superhuman. People adored him because he appeared to be a normal guy stuck in a terrible situation. Bruce did something unexpected just a year later. In the film Look Who's Talking, he agreed to voice a talking baby. Although it sounded like a joke, the concept itself was surprising. That was his right. He earned $10 million for just 4 days of voice work. Why? He got a cut of the profits from a wise deal. Despite being produced for less than $10 million, the film generated about $300 million worldwide. His charming and sardonic voice became popular with families all around the world. The film became a franchise, and he received an additional $10 million for the follow-up. Everyone began to see that he wasn't simply fortunate, he was also intelligent. Then he made a completely different attempt. In Country came out in September 1989. A Vietnam veteran living in a small village was the subject of this slow-moving, poignant tale. Bruce developed a mustache and performed the part in silent agony. Perhaps the fact that his own father had served in the Korean War gave the performance a more authentic feel. It was well received by critics. It received 3 stars from Roger Ebert. However, audiences did not appear. Only a few $1,000,000 were made from the film. Nevertheless, it demonstrated Bruce's willingness to take chances, even if it meant avoiding another blow. He had returned to full action by 1990. On July 4th, Die Hard 2 was released in theaters. Bruce was aware of his value this time. In addition to a portion of the profits, he received $7.05 million up front. Even more than the first film, the film brought in over $240 million globally. He argued with the director behind the scenes over reality. Cartoonish stunts were not what he wanted. He wanted the threat to seem genuine. His profession continued to advance because of that same attitude, which cared about the small things. Additionally, his pay had increased to $15 million by 1995 when the third film was released. However, not everything he came into contact with turned to gold. When it was published in late 1990, the Look Who's Talking sequel was a complete failure. It received harsh criticism and only made $47 million. Bruce later acknowledged that the script wasn't ready, despite recording all of his lines in 3 days. He even filed a lawsuit against the producer, alleging that they owed him a $2 million profit-sharing cut. However, the case was dismissed. It served as a reminder that quick cash did not always translate into long-term prosperity. Then something changed. Pulp Fiction came out in 1994. Bruce was chosen by Quentin Tarantino to play Butch, a boxer who declines to engage in combat. Not only did the film bring his career back to life, it changed how people perceived him. Realistic, risk-taking, and gritty. His salary for the post was only $800,000. Far lower than his typical charge. He didn't care, though. It has to do with the narrative. The movie won an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay and went on to make nearly $200 million. People began to take Bruce seriously as more than just an action guy, even if he wasn't nominated. He worked even harder the following year. He portrayed a shattered man from a post-apocalyptic future in the late 1995 film 12 Monkeys. For the part, he shed 20 pounds. To get ready, he went to mental facilities. Additionally, he broke his shoulder performing a stunt during filming. But he continued. The film received 2 Oscar nominations and made over $160 million. Again, Bruce is not being nominated. However, his passion for the role was undeniable. He shocked everyone once more in 1997. With The Fifth Element, it was chaotic, colorful, futuristic, and crazy. Bruce portrayed a taxi driver who ends as being the last hope for Earth. The film made over $260 million, but it cost about $90 million, which was a record at the time. Bruce performed the feats himself. His orange vests were tight, which he detested, but it all worked out somehow. The film turned into a cult favorite. Then 1998 arrived, when Bruce starred in Armageddon, a massive disaster film. He portrayed Harry Stamper, a hardy oil driller dispatched to prevent Earth from being destroyed by an asteroid. With a global box office total of over $583 million, the July 1st release became the year's top movie. Behind the scenes, however, things were difficult. Scenes that were removed, particularly the touching family moments, caused Bruce and director Michael Bay to argue. He later said that the filming was a misery after arguing with producer Jerry Bruckheimer. Nevertheless, Bruce improvised the film's most poignant scene, the sad farewell, which aided in its ability to engage viewers. Bruce received a Razzie for Worst Actor in 1999, which is an odd turn of events for such a big hit, even if the movie had 4 Oscar nominations. Bruce's private life also garnered media attention in 1987. In July, when Demi Moore was still engaged to Emilio Estevez, he met her at a movie screening. However, Bruce and Demi were married in Las Vegas on November 21, 1987, a mere 4 months later. The wedding wasn't really planned, Demi later claimed. Bruce proposed that they simply get married while they were en route to gamble. They held a formal ceremony with over 100 guests a month later. And Little Richard was among them, serving as the officiant. The unexpected union, which started a strong Hollywood partnership, cost less than $1,000. Before the wedding, rumors circulated that Demi was expecting, but their first daughter, Rumor, was born in August 1988, precisely 9 months later. 3 children, Rumor in 1988, Scout in 1991, and Tallulah in 1994, were born to Bruce and Demi. By taking turns in film parts, they attempted to strike a balance between job and family, but popularity came with stress. In 1996, Demi made a record $12. $5 million from striptease, but the two of them were surrounded by allegations of infidelity. Demi was associated with her co-stars, and Bruce with models. Bruce is said to have hurried off a movie set in 1995 following a fight. Despite their public separation, the harm was already being done behind the scenes. After 11 years of marriage, Bruce and Demi split up in 1998. In October 2000, their divorce was formalized. On the surface, the breakup appeared to be amicable, but they were secretly fighting over their $200 million inheritance. In what was one of the most costly divorces in Hollywood history, Bruce paid Demi up to $90 million. They had to decide who would get custody of their girls as well. According to insiders, it wasn't easy, but Bruce told Rolling Stone that they remained friends for the children. Demi raised the girls on a ranch in Idaho, which she preserved. Bruce was still enjoying the popularity of Armageddon at the moment, but the divorce revealed that even the biggest celebrities had personal struggles that went hand in hand with their notoriety. Even after the divorce, the two remained close, which surprised me. Demi attended Bruce and Emma Hemming's 2009 wedding. Additionally, Demi participated in the family celebration in 2019 when Bruce and Emma reaffirmed their vow. They even sent joyful pictures and spent the 2020 lockdown in Idaho with all the children. After Bruce was diagnosed with aphasia in 2022 and frontotemporal dementia in 2023, Demi later provided him with support. The blended family held up well, demonstrating to the world that marriage is not always the end of love. When a lady claimed in 1992 that Bruce was the father of her child after a 1991 one-night stand, it was one of the darkest episodes in his past. A DNA test was performed after she brought him to court. The test, which at the time cost about $5,000, established that Bruce wasn't the father. Nevertheless, the case damaged his reputation. He was regarded as a loving father, and that image wasn't supported by this scandal. According to rumors, Demi's support of him caused significant strain on their marriage. Bruce played the lead in The Sixth Sense, a subdued thriller that shocked everyone in 1999. He received $14 million for his role as Malcolm Crowe, a child psychologist. No one anticipated the story's unexpected turn. All along, Crowe had been dead. The movie earned around $673 million worldwide and topped a box office for 5 weeks. It surpassed Star Wars, The Phantom Menace as the second biggest film of 1999. Although Bruce was not nominated for an Oscar, the role significantly advanced his career. In order to give his character a more authentic feel, he even improvised sequences and kept the twist a secret from nearly everyone. Bruce reteamed with director M in 2000, Shyamalan for Unbreakable Night. He played David Dunn, a guy who escapes a train accident and gradually comes to believe that he could be a superhero in real life. The film's startling $75 million production cost was significantly higher than anticipated, in part due to Bruce's $20 million salary and co-star Samuel L. Jackson's $10 million. Despite earning $248 million, the large budget led to conflict with Disney. The expense of some reshoots increased considerably more. Nevertheless, the film developed a devoted following and eventually was included in a trilogy. However, Shyamalan's career was nearly over at the time due to the costly risk. Bruce had dabbled in music before he became famous for his films. He put out an album titled The Return of Bruno in 1987. He sung renditions of well-known songs while portraying Bruno Radolini. Respect Yourself, one of the songs, even peaked at number 5 on the Billboard charts. Under the Boardwalk peaked at number 2 in the UK. Although the album achieved gold status and sold over 500,000 copies, critics detested it. It was deemed tone-deaf by Rolling Stone, and it was so widely ridiculed that by 1989, Bruce had given up singing professionally. He nevertheless gave live performances at significant gatherings like Farm Aid, but the criticism affected him personally. Bruce made headlines once more in 2001, this time due to rumors that surfaced when Bandits was being filmed. He co-starred with Cate Blanchett and Billy Bob Thornton, and tabloids said Bruce and Cate were having an affair. When Ashton Kutcher, who was seeing another actress on site, became suspicious, the rumors only grew more intense. All of this was later covered in Demi Moore's 2019 memoir. Despite Blanchett's later claim that everything was false, the drama nearly destroyed the film's marketing. With only $67 million in revenue, Bandits was unable to meet its $75 million budget. Bruce experienced a significant setback the next year. In 2002, Hearts War. In a detention camp during World War II, he portrayed a colonel. Despite spending $70 million, the film only generated $32 million globally. But MGM's stock fell, and they lost more than $50 million. Bruce later acknowledged that the event caused him to doubt his career. Despite receiving $15 million for the part, he stopped watching blockbuster films and entered therapy. Bruce Willis revived John McClane in the 2007 film Live Free or Die Hard. He had to contend with cyber terrorists this time. Additionally, the film made $383 million worldwide at the box office, despite the change to a PG-13 rating. However, things weren't always easy behind the scenes. A mishandled stunt during a fast-paced pursuit caused Willis to have a concussion. He had also encountered danger on set before. He had lost hearing in his left ear due to shooting and had almost died in one of the explosions in the original Die Hard. Co-star Justin Long used practical jokes such as slipping oatmeal over Willis's seat to lighten the mood even during dramatic scenes. The Len Weissman-directed movie made nearly $134 million in the U.S. alone. A year prior, and Willis had made a startling change. He voiced RJ, a fast-talking raccoon, in place of bullets and blood. In the family cartoon Over the Hedge, ravenous creatures invade the suburbs. Although it was completely unanticipated, he did it so brilliantly that the film earned $339 million worldwide. According to reports, he received $5 million for simply speaking up, with co-stars like Wanda Sykes and Gary Shandling bringing the Woodland Gang to life. It was a great hit when it was released on May 19. Bruce created RJ. Clever and amusing story about a raccoon deceiving his friends into lending him money to pay back a bear. Fans saw a different side of him during the height of his fame, and it was one of the few times they could hear him in a children's movie. Then, in Red 2010, he portrayed former CIA agent Frank Moses, almost a high-octane, humorous film that made almost $200 million worldwide. There were several legends on the cast. The chemistry between Helen Mirren, John Malkovich, and Morgan Freeman was electrifying. However, it wasn't all laughter behind the scenes. Willis was worn out, and there were apparently some uncomfortable moments with the crew as a result of his mood changes on site. Critics praised the movie despite this. Although many thought it didn't quite capture the same enchantment, a 2013 sequel brought in an additional $148 million. Even though the years were starting to show, Red showed everyone why Willis was still a powerful action star. He made a brief appearance in The Expendables that same year. Schwarzenegger and Stallone share the screen. For action lovers, it was the ideal squad, but by 2013, drama had taken over. Willis sought $4 million, even though he was given $3 million for working on Expendables, 3 for 4 days. It wasn't taken lightly by Stallone. He publicly accused him of being lazy and greedy. Harrison Ford was chosen to take his place in less than 72 hours. The consequences garnered media attention. Even though Willis played a minor part, the 2010 original movie was an unforgettable one that brought in $274 million. Wow. The damage was done even if his second 2013 feature, too, made $80 million, proving that the alleged greed may have only been a negotiating tactic. Things had altered by 2015. A plethora of low-budget, straight-to-video action films were featuring Willis. Vice was one of them, in which he portrayed the proprietor of a resort populated by lifelike androids. Critics detested it, despite its attempt to look futuristic, a la Blade Runner. Reviewers criticized it for being sloppy and uninteresting, and it hardly made an impression when it was released in January. People began to notice behind the scenes that he was working on up to 5 of these kinds of movies annually. The performances didn't seem genuine. He was losing his spark. And it made sense when his family disclosed in 2022 that he had been battling aphasia, a language-related brain disorder. These positions weren't side gigs, they were signals. There was a problem, but life had its own twists away from the cinema. He shocked everyone in 2009 when he wed Emma Hemming, a British model. On the set of Perfect Stranger, they had first met 2 years prior. On March 21, they were married in a private ceremony at his home in Turks and Caicos. Despite the fact that they were 24 years apart in age, he was 54 and she was 30. Demi Moore was present, along with their daughters. In Beverly Hills, they formally announced it a few days later. 10 years later, with all 5 of their daughters there, they returned to the same beach to reaffirm their vows. It offered a second opportunity at something stable and was serene and lovely. When attackers attempted to enter their ranch in Idaho in 2015, their tranquility was upended. It was terrible, but the break-in was stopped. Security was immediately improved. The annual cost of the gates, cameras, and armed guards is about $500,000. The fact that one of the males was found in possession of private images of the Willis family only made matters worse. It wasn't arbitrary, it was the target. Willis, who is renowned for his unwavering on-screen persona, subsequently underwent private defense training. Their isolated property started to resemble a fortress. It appeared that fame had a cost. His life's worst moments didn't stop there. Willis was detained at his house in the Hollywood Hills in 1989 while under the influence of moonlighting. He had been drinking, and he shoved one of the cops when they showed up at a noisy party. He was intoxicated, shirtless, and had re-injured his fractured collarbone from skiing. After community service, charges were dropped, but it served as a warning. He talked candidly about his struggles with drinking in his 2018 memoir, which included bar fights and blackouts. He attributed his life's transformation to Alcoholics Anonymous. Fans were taken aback by how covert everything had been. Behind his composed, self-assured on-screen persona. Then, during the COVID lockdowns in 2020, Bruce did something that no one anticipated. Demi Moore placed him in quarantine at her Idaho home together with their 3 grown daughters. After little Evelyn suffered a foot injury in a park accident, Emma remained in Los Angeles with their younger daughters. Bruce and his ex-wife lived together once more for a few weeks, playing games, taking family pictures, and dressing alike. It seemed unreal. They demonstrated that love doesn't always end in divorce when the world was on edge. Emma even wrote kind remarks on their pictures. It was already one of the most viral moments of the pandemic when Bruce eventually made it home. It all changed in March 2022. In a statement, his family announced that Bruce had been diagnosed with aphasia and was immediately stepping away from performing. He was 67. The news was devastating. All of those odd performances in recent movies suddenly made sense. He had been having trouble speaking and occasionally had to use body doubles or earpieces. A few directors had to work around his bewilderment. It was devastating for an actor who had once controlled the screen with a single glance. By February 2023, the situation worsened. Physicians verified that it had developed into frontotemporal dementia, a rare and incurable illness that gradually impairs mobility, personality, and language. Later, Emma claimed that she believed he had simply grown aloof, but it wasn't him. The illness was the cause. His vivacious charm started to wane. He slowed his pace. He didn't say much. On August 15, 2025, Bruce left his family's main residence and went into a special care facility nearby. Emma referred to it as the most difficult choice she had ever made. Mabel and Evelyn, their daughters, were just 11 and 13 years old. She made it her mission to keep them from seeing the worst of it. The new house cost over $200,000 annually and had workers on duty around the clock. Nevertheless, the family came to visit frequently, eating together and laughing when they could. However, Emma acknowledged that it felt like their entire world had fallen apart. By the middle of 2025, Bruce was unable to speak. The man who used to yell lines over explosives and Die Hard now used gestures and infrequent facial expressions to convey his message. Nevertheless, he would occasionally, just occasionally, laugh, that same loud, distinctive chuckle, or his eyes would light up when he heard a song from his 1987 album, The Return of Bruno. Only a few times a week, such moments were invaluable. However, they served as a reminder as well. One of the best voices in Hollywood has stopped talking.